everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Poultry Nutrition Bite Belt podcast, where we break down the latest and greatest in poultry nutrition research and industry in less than 10 minutes or so. And I'm one of your hosts, Dr. Sam Rochel from Auburn University. And because we had such a good conversation, we were able to extend and bring on another episode with Dr. Tanika O'Connor Dennie. And so, Dr. Tanika, thank you for agreeing to continue the conversation, and I look forward to talking with you further.
And you mentioned in the notes in preparing for this that you had some approaches for using broiler trials, I think, maybe to evaluate or validate some of your ingredient analyses from NIR and wet chem. Can you speak on that a little bit?
Yeah, so this was actually a suggestion from one of our suppliers. You know, the birds, I got several batches of soybean meal, and the wet chemistry and the NIR looked great, but for some reason the birds weren't gaining weight. And, you know, the veterinarian and some of the farmers kept on saying to me, it's a soybean meal. And I said, no, it's not a soybean meal. Then I said, you know, I spoke to one of our suppliers and they said, well, you know, one of the things you could do is before using the soybean meal, since there is a two week lead up time before you actually need to use it, why not formulate a diet in which the NIR results that you've obtained is used, formulated to the specification of your diet, like normal, and then get your soybean meal that you already have in use and you know how the birds are performing, and then do just a pairwise comparison in small cages. So, you know, I went ahead, I got rabbit cages, 16 rabbit cages, and I had 7 birds per cage. So I got my replicates that way. And it was just something simple. Within 7 days, you got the 7-day weights. And of course, you know, there's a direct correlation between 7-day weights and the slaughter weight. And if they didn't meet the 7-day weight target that was expected, then, you know, you go back to the drawing board. If they met it or exceeded it, you know, okay, the NR analysis, the wet chemistry analysis is spot on. So I think practical things like that is very useful. And I would recommend for any nutritionist to implement something like that, particularly when it is that you're getting a mixed batch barge. So when it's a single source soybean meal supplier, it's fine. You know, you can trust what the NIR readings are. But when it is a composite blend, and let's face it, Jamaica is a small island, you know, we're only using at most 1,000 metric tons of soybean meal. Well, our company, but combine the two companies, will probably use 2,000 metric tons of soybean meal per week. In the grand scheme of things, that's very small. And unless you demonstrate that, yes, I'm checking the quality, they will send you pretty much anything. And unless you're buying on a QSUM basis, you can't guarantee the quality of the soybean meal that you're getting, no matter what the KOH and the PDI values say. It's the birds that tell you whether or not the soybean meal is good.
Right. Yeah. No, that makes perfect sense. And I think we still have a lot to learn to fully understand these quality indicators and kind of what they mean for actual performance. So that's neat to hear your approach for validating that. In addition to those challenges, you've also talked a lot about and presented some, I think, word recently about your approach of what you did in response to COVID and kind of how that worked. And I know that was a challenge for everyone. You want to talk about that and kind of how that changed the game for how your production was running?
Yeah, definitely. So for a long time, I've always maintained that because the Caribbean has higher ambient temperatures, the notion that you should wholeheartedly adopt the very high amino acid densities of the breeder companies is not necessarily true, especially when you consider the stocking density that we often use and the impact of heat stress added on top of that. So when COVID-19 came and we needed to cut our production costs, of course, the fastest way to cut your production costs is through feed. And I was able to reduce the diet density. And what that reduction in diet density did was actually kept bird performance the same, or in some cases for some of the farmers actually improved bird performance. And there was a savings on average of $10 per metric ton. So this demonstrated more than ever that it is good to use the breeder guidelines as such guidelines, but you have to understand that every single environment is unique. And when a lot of the studies out there talk about heat stress, they do a cycle heat stress, but in the Caribbean it's sustained high temperatures. So there's no cooling off period in the nights, particularly in the summer. And that has a tremendous impact on gastrointestinal tract. And if it is that the animals are not absorbing properly, it doesn't matter how much more amino acids, even if it's crystalline amino acids that you're pumping into the diet, how much more nutrient dense you make the diet, they will not absorb it. And actually, you might be harming the animals because now you have increased ammonia excretion. So you have increased ammonia in the house, you have the burning of the foot pads, that type of thing. So overall bird comfort is compromised. So we have to be very careful in when we talk about nutrition principles and formulation. We have to keep a regional perspective in mind when we're doing that.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, we actually, with my PhD student at Arkansas, Jean-Remy Tessier, he just defended a couple of weeks ago, and he was looking at this exact scenario, and certainly the crude protein and amino acid density with heat stress interaction wasn't as simple as we thought it might be, and so he had some interesting findings on that. But I think sounds like we may be somewhat in line with what you've seen in your practical experience as well.
Yeah. That's great to know. And one of the things too that I often say to young nutritionists, for the Caribbean, you have to be a professional problem solver, and that's the reason why I have it on my LinkedIn profile, because the Caribbean has one of the highest brain drains. So a lot of technical people have left, particularly in agriculture and livestock production. So although you are a poultry nutritionist, in my case, I ended up being a general nutritionist because it is required of me. But it also means that I have to know a little bit about vaccination programs. I have to know a little bit about necropsies. I have to know a little bit about geography and geology and how they interact, biochemistry, microbiology. And the reason why I know a little bit of everything is because I've collaborated with other colleagues. I've listened with an open mind and I've shared information willingly. And what that ended up doing is making me a better nutritionist.
Sure.
For that collaboration. And it also means embracing technology. So, I remember the infrared camera. The reason why I started using it in my field visits was because a ruminant nutritionist had the camera and he was looking at ambient the ambient temperature and body temperature and heat increment and how it affected small ruminant productivity. And this was mind-blowing to me because I don't recall ever learning about this when I was in graduate school. And I said, well, okay, how can we incorporate this into broiler production? And this was long before I even saw it in I think it was a Cobb manual that had it afterwards. Right. So little things like that, water testing kits. I know Dr. Watkins is a big proponent of water quality, and it is probably the most underrated nutrient that we have access to. So little things like that, when you have birds that are struggling to meet their weight targets, you have to be systematic in eliminating what are the potential causes. And it actually means that you have to be a generalist now. So you have to know a little bit about feed mill operation, the interrelationship between particle size and pellet durability index and feed efficiency, those little things, the quality of the steam when you're out in the house, the ventilation curve, all those things. You have to know a little bit of everything if you want to be a successful poultry nutritionist.
Yeah, that's a great perspective, and I think hopefully we have some students and younger professionals hear that, because I think is a good perspective. And your background too in multi-species, I'm sure, is, as you mentioned, been very helpful. And that's just something that we often don't get the opportunity to do. Maybe swine and poultry a little bit, but it's generally limited to that. So I think your background in all the species has provided a lot of perspective, it seems like.
Yeah. And it started at University of Arkansas when I did Dr. Kegley's course in energetics. So I learned about ruminant nutrition. Well, and I also did it at LSU too, but it really gave me the platform required to have an open mind on how to approach nutrition.
Yeah.
The 2023 Arkansas Nutrition Conference Technical Symposium is brought to you by Carey. Proven on the farm, trusted on the plate. Let our technologies help make your production goals a reality. Learn from the experts how carbohydrases improve nutrient utilization. Gut health technologies differ by type. Innovative ways to feed and a novel technology that will light your performance on fire. See us August 29th in Little Rock.
Is there anything else that you want to share for the audience?
Yeah, I want to say, nobody has the complete answer, and the only way we can be advocates for change and advocates for increased food security in the world is if we collaborate with each other. I know that sometimes we view our work in a vacuum, but let's not forget that our primary goal is to reduce the cost of production so that everybody has access to a cheap, safe, reliable source of animal-based protein. And I think we owe it to the general public to have frank discussions with them and be as transparent as possible about the science and why is it that we're in our field. I'm in it because I'm a global citizen. I want to serve my fellow Jamaicans, worldwide citizens. And I think that is how we should approach it from, I guess, a servant. Well, it wouldn't be a servant leadership. It's just from a servant standpoint. I'm here to serve the entire world. And the only way we can bridge the gap between the consumers and scientists is if we have conversations and make ourselves vulnerable and not hide behind very technical scientific terms. Break it down to their level and educate them.
Thank you again for the additional information, Dr. Tanika. It's been really insightful learning about all that you've been able to learn and share with us about practical application of research in a commercial setting, particularly under your unique situation in Jamaica and the challenges and opportunities that presents. So thank you again for everything that you're doing and sharing. Thank you.
Hey everyone, we're always searching for the latest and greatest research to share each week. And if you have a poultry nutrition related research trial and would like to come on the show and talk about it and share it with us, feel free to email the research link, the paper where we can find it, or the abstract to hello@wisenetics.com. That's hello@wisenetics.com. And I look forward to hearing from you.